like this, how weird it would be if I never made eye contact, or if I only made eye contact and I was so close to the camera that you couldn't see anything around me. There'd be no environment, just me. Kind of creepy, isn't it? Yeah, there's something to learn about mastering your presentation technique when you're talking to a camera and not a crowd of 500 people. And well, that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Master the story power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com. Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. Kind of weird when you feel like you're talking to somebody and they're not really talking to you, huh? Imagine if you were in that conversation with someone, standing face to face, nose to nose, knees to knees, and yet their eyes, their attention seems to be wandering elsewhere. It's so easy to do when there's not somebody there to tap you on the shoulder and go, hey, back here, focus here. I've watched many relationships go south. In fact, there's country songs about it. I'm sure there's songs in other genres about it as well. There's one called The Wandering Eye. And it's about a guy and a girl that no matter where they go for dinner, he's always looking over her shoulder past to someone else. See, this is not just a leadership problem. This is a communication problem. It's a relationship problem. It has to do with the amount of attention and focus that you put on the person you're talking to, your audience. In the Story Power Masterclass, the Story Power 6 weeks, one of the lessons we talk about at different levels is a really simple idea that when your story abandons your audience abandons you or abandons your story. If they don't feel like they're included, if they're not part of this, if they didn't know what happened in a way that they can say, oh yeah, something like that happened to me, whether I witnessed it or it was me or I was a victim of, whatever the relationship to that story is, if the story doesn't include them, they're out. If you've ever been in a conversation with someone who's always looking over your shoulder for someone more important to spend time with, you get the same kind of energy as not being included in the story or the content, the context of the story being relevant to you. See, when we communicate for the camera, we have to remember that the camera is like a person. By that I mean, not that the digital device itself is, whether it's your phone or your iPad or studio cameras like I have here, not that that device becomes personified, but that device represents one person, a person. You have to talk to the camera with the same affection and attention that you would if you were talking to one person. Now, as I demonstrated in the opening, if I choose this one camera and I speak to this camera with the body language of being on stage and all of my movements and gestures are huge and enormous, then that's fine at this distance. But the closer I get to the camera, the more that high def focus, when that focus locks in and you can see every single whisker. In that moment, the intensity of a facial expression, just an eyebrow movement. The difference between smoldering and just looking ridiculous. If you haven't seen Jumanji, you might want to go watch that. But see, all of these things, if I were standing face to face with a human at this distance and using hand gestures like this between me and them, I'm blocking our relationship. And probably freaking them out just a little bit. They're probably going, whoa, what is up with this guy? The Seinfeld, you know the guy I'm talking about, Kramer. But see, work in the room, work in the stage, knowing where everybody else is seated, that's pretty easy. It's also fairly easy when you're working a crowd that you can see. You could walk out and shake hands with somebody, high five somebody, fist bump somebody, give them an elbow. When you know that you can do that with people because they're close, you're in proximity. And you've done all the things that we talked about in the last episode, like Make sure that the lighting is right from the right angles, and make sure that you don't have barricades in front of you like plants or letters or something of that nature blocking you from the audience. Once you've done all those things, it's really easy to get that energy loop as a feedback loop. If they're paying attention, you don't just see that their eyes are on you, but you kind of feel that. Not so with the camera. I mean, I intentionally, all of the cameras save one, the one that's up there, all of the cameras that are pointed at me right now have their lenses flipped over. Meaning, I can see in the monitor on the device itself whether that camera is pointed at me and whether or not I'm looking at that camera. Because even people who use a teleprompter, the good ones are literally right in front of the lens. Meaning, I'm looking right into the lens and I'm talking to you. But it only takes me moving my eyes from the lens on the camera to the monitor in the studio. My nose has moved, my eyes have moved, my face has moved, and suddenly you feel like I'm talking to somebody over your shoulder. I'm not looking at you. I'm not having a conversation with you. And as you progress in your communication skills as a leader, if you're the type of person, and I've seen them, it's usually about a $200 fix. I've seen people on a platform turn around to point at the screen, to read the bullet points off of the PowerPoint. Anybody want to see the back of my head like that? Probably not. Nobody wants to stare at my backside while I read from the screen what you can probably read yourself. Usually if you've got an AV company at all, for about $200, you can rent a 30 or 40 inch monitor to sit on the floor that has on that monitor exactly what's on that screen. So you can look just a little bit of eye difference from the camera down to the floor, from the audience down to the floor, and see the monitor that has exactly what's on the screen. So you can read that without having to turn around. When you're in the studio, when you're in front of the camera, you've got to be able to do the same kind of things. I have my cheater notes right here if I needed them. Same dialogue that I'm discussing with you about the lens as a person, the energy setting, and eyeline mastery. All of those things are right here on my notes if I needed them. The idea of being able to place those things without using a teleprompter or picking up a script, which causes you to look down like this, all of those things are part of your preparation for your message. I remember working with some people in the studio who were working with a teleprompter, but there were ideas that were in the message in the teleprompter that were unfamiliar to the talent on the screen. Now, it just happened to be that the talent on the screen was a local elected official. The studio called me because they had read through the script that had been loaded into the teleprompter a couple of times, and they're like, I'm not sure I understand the concepts that they're trying to deliver in this message, and I think the message might need some help. Maybe not necessarily the talent, but the way that they're communicating their ideas. And so I came in as a consultant just on the messaging, and I sat behind the scenes with the people that are working on the script, and I walked through the script with them a couple of times. We walked through the pace of how it's going to go through the teleprompter. And one of the things that we found fascinating, and I see people do this all the time, they switch back and forth between looking at the camera with the teleprompter and looking at the camera over here. And here's what they think it provides. They think it provides a more down-home kind of a feel. They feel like if I'm talking to each different person in the room, that the different camera angle is actually going to give a benefit. There's some benefit to it, but there's also benefit if my producer is watching me look right down the lens of this camera and knows exactly which camera I'm looking at, then every gesture, every facial expression, every movement feeds that camera in a very intimate relationship. And if I turn my body and move to another camera, the producer should catch that and follow with that as well. But there's as much value in knowing that I can stare down this camera, look right into the lens of this camera, and know that when the camera's angles switch, it adds texture, it adds flavor, it adds a little bit of different nuance without losing the intimacy. Why? Because I'm treating this camera like a person. This camera then becomes a bystander. This camera then becomes someone else in the crowd. It's validation. It's another angle. It's seeing things from all kinds of angles. And now we're kind of moved from the presenter standpoint to the producer standpoint, but you've got to have a good quality producer to be able to do that as well, to read the moment, to know when to switch the camera angle, to be paying close enough attention that if you walk across the room, the camera follows you. If you don't have an AI camera that follows you all over the room, our little Obi does that well. If you don't have something like that, then you've got to know that whoever's manning the camera can keep you in the lens. There's one particular speaker. He's famous, infamous, notorious, whatever way you want to say this for it. His name is Andy Andrews. A phenomenal author, phenomenal communicator, probably one of the best alive right now, Andy Andrews. But I've been in a place where the production team had 18 cameras. 18. And his movements sometimes are so unpredictable that you can't keep him in a lens. I've watched them try to follow him back and forth across the stage. He will literally take off across the stage, pick up pace, jump off the stage, run into the crowd halfway up into the stands, and you're thinking there's no light there, there's no camera pointed that way, how do I even follow him? And we've got to use a jib crane to find him, and by the time you get him in the lens, he's moved again. His energy level in a live crowd of 3,000 or 4,000 people allows him to do that without even thinking about it. It's his natural reaction. What he's not thinking is, I have to communicate to this camera. Now, there are times that he gets back on stage, he looks right down the lens of the main camera, and he communicates to those who are not in the room. I'm challenging you as a communicator, as a leader, to understand that there are moments when the 20, 30, 50, 150, 500 people in the room become innocent bystanders. Now, if you watch some close-up work with, say, Tony Robbins, when he's got 3,000 or 4,000 people in the room, but he's working with an individual one-on-one, if you were behind the scenes, what you would see is that the producers have positioned cameras. They may be handheld, free-range cameras that are moving around throughout the crowd, but there will always be a shot that's right down Tony's nose, even when he's talking to one individual in the crowd. If he's doing work with one individual who stood up in this big crowd. Now, all the other cameras are still looking for engagement in the audience. They're looking for people all over the room. But Tony knows that when he's looking to that person that he's working with right over their shoulder, and they might be 60 feet away. All of my cameras are 20x minimum. That's 20x optical zoom, which means at about 150 to 200 feet, I can zoom in on your face and see nothing but your face. Go back and watch the old Tony Robbins videos when he's working a live crowd, several thousand people in the room. But when he's talking to an individual, he's one of the best at not acknowledging the entire crowd, letting that one person that he's working with feel like the person in the room. And if you watch him, you'll also see he's also a master at that conversation with that one person. How do you feel about this? Is it possible that you're thinking this? Have you moved in this way? Have you tried this? And it's a one-on-one individual conversation. But because the camera angles follow him around the room, you may get a side shot. You may get what the POV, the point of view of somebody in the audience is seeing, where they see Tony and they see the other person and they see the massive crowds. And especially when, again, this is your producer shot, when the crowd reacts to something Tony says or the other person says, when there's a celebration, when there's a kind of an aha, takes your breath away kind of a moment. The camera doesn't stay focused on Tony. It doesn't stay focused on the person he's working with. It zooms out for a moment to give you the feel that you're in the room. As a communicator, your relationship with your producer should be solid enough that you know that. Solid enough that you have a feel that when you move to another part of the room, when you have a different conversation with somebody in the room, whether you're teaching a class, leading a panel, or delivering a keynote to a large audience. You should know how they're going to react when you do something. Funny little true story. We took our robot camera, the one we affectionately call Obi, we took Obi to Milwaukee with us. 15 different speakers on the stage over a period of 3 days. And early on, I didn't realize that the AI hand signals came activated in the device out of the box. And so we put it up on the tripod. We had it connected to the system wirelessly. It was about 200 feet, I guess, from our table. And I was watching the camera following the people on the stage, and it was doing a pretty good job of it. But from time to time, the camera would just go and point to the ceiling. Or it would keep recording, but it would stop tracking. Or it would zoom way out, like it was going back to its home setting. And for a while, I couldn't figure out why it was doing that. And what I realized was the people on the stage were constantly talking with their hands, like Italians or Texans. They're just constantly talking with their hands. And from time to time, they would come up to these gestures that the camera had been trained, meant it was supposed to perform in a certain way. And they would tell the camera to stop recording or stop following me. And they didn't know that's what they were doing, because most of them didn't even know the camera was there or where it was located or what it was recording. But when your hand gestures tell the camera to do something, that would be like saying to my producer, I'm going to go over here to camera 4. And if the producer is paying attention and switches to camera 4, then my relationship with this camera is anticipated. Those that are watching know that my movement is oriented to them. I'm talking to them. And even if I were to walk back into the frame of the other cameras, continuing to have this conversation is like mom saying, I've got to go over here and finish the dishes, but I still want to have this conversation. Come in a little close. Oh, look, there you are. And see, the camera's ability to keep that relationship, that look going, that feel going, that you haven't been discluded from the information. If I were to run that way, more than about 5 feet, there's no camera in the room that will see me. I could literally step completely out of range. My mic would still hear me for like 150 feet or more, but no camera would be able to see me because we don't have any other robots turned on. I have to know that as a communicator. I have to know that that may be a comfortable space for me, that one spot on the stage. The other thing you got to know is whether it's on the stage or it's in a studio where it's just you and the cameras, or it's somebody doing a live on the phone, on the street. You've got to know where your camera frame is. You also have to know that sometimes what's behind you, what's going on behind you, that can change everything as well. The scene in the background. You may remember a now borderline infamous news story where the news anchor was standing in the street. The camera is right in his face. And he says, these are mostly peaceful protests. And behind him, they're jumping on cars. They're setting buildings on fire. There are literally fires raging behind him. Mostly peaceful protests. This is called cognitive dissonance, when your brain sees one thing and the words you hear are something else. So if you're working in front of a camera, if you're producing content in front of a camera, you should probably be cognizant of what's going on behind you. You should make sure that there's cohesion between the words that you're saying and the things that the world is seeing. Maybe you've seen the Whose Line Is It Anyway, where they actually put a green screen up, and so the person standing there has no idea what's on the green screen. They don't know what the rest of the world is seeing through the lens of the camera. They just see the blank green screen. Digital does all the rest, and their objective is, based on the feedback they're getting from the mock reporters in the studio, they have to discern what's on the green screen behind them. I would not have much fun with that game. I would much rather have better control of where I point my camera in the first place. We have pictures from the beach this last vacation trip where we were just trying to take pictures of our family, down the beach where you could see the sun setting on the beach, and someone would run into frame and unintentionally stop and adjust their bathing suit or stop and fix themselves or whatever else. They're photobombing our photo, not because they want to, but just because they're unaware that there's a camera around. As a camera operator, as a communicator, I need to know that the scene behind me is consistent with the message that I'm delivering. One of the things that I see in a lot of environments, as a sponsor specifically, when I'm paying to be a sponsor on someone else's stage, it's common for them to say, I want to make sure that everybody sees you on my stage with my logo behind you. That's fine. It doesn't always make for good camera. It doesn't always make for good video, because that logo behind you might be on a shiny vinyl banner, and the minute you turn on stage light, it reflects. It might be that that logo is like a dasher board, a step and repeat board. It's everywhere. There's no way that you can get the logo out of the background. So you feel like your video is their advertisement. Sometimes I think to myself, if I paid you to sponsor your event, why do I want your logo in my video? I paid for that. It's almost like saying I'm gonna go buy a T-shirt for a NASCAR team and wear it around advertising their team. It's a common thing to wear a brand that's popular, but is that the way you want to be seen always? It should be a negotiation thing, right? You should have an opportunity to say, hey, there's no video or photo shot of me that doesn't have your logo in it. Is there any chance that we can have something else? But again, this comes back to you as a communicator, understanding what your camera sees. How does it see you? How do you look into the camera? So one of those things is eye line, right? 2 weeks ago in the studio, we had a guest. When we have a guest, we use this same table. So at this table, where the cameras are adjusted right now, they're adjusted for my standing height. When I sit, I'm a bit lower than this. See all this extra headroom? That looks a little funny, and my head looks like it's kind of in the wrong spot. So when I'm standing, the cameras are adjusted to be level to my eye. Ideally, the lens is about the equivalent height of your eyebrow. Understanding that as an ideal angle to make sure that you kind of narrow the chin a little bit, you get the best features, you don't have light shining up your nose or a camera shining up your nose, is about adjusting the height of your tripod and your lights. So the light specifically aimed at my face, there are about 9 lights, 10, 12, there's a lot of lights in the studio right now. The camera angle and the light angle associated to that camera should be very direct. So I have one light literally that's right above that camera lens. And whether it's the close-up or it's the wide shot, that light hits me directly and my face is pointed right toward those two cameras. There's another light above the higher camera and another light above the camera that shoots over my shoulder, because when I do my close-ups and I walk right up to the camera, that's the one. I want to be lit from this side. I want hair light from this side so that it doesn't look like I'm blending into the background. But if I remove those cameras from this angle and I move them down to the table angle so that they're at eyebrow level when we're seated, which is what I would do with a guest. The last guest, I believe, was Daniel Gomez. Daniel and I are almost the same height. He's a little bit shorter than me, but in the bar stools, we're really close to the same height. So all of the cameras in the studio were lowered to that same height. Here's what happened. We came back in the next week to start shooting live again. And I was so focused on my content, I wasn't paying attention to where the cameras are. And the production team didn't raise the cameras back up. So they were at a seated level and not like a standing level. What happens with that, I'm going to demonstrate this right over here on 4 by using a step ladder. If I take a step ladder and my camera is set right here for a seated level, and then I try to do a standing level, all of a sudden I'm out of the picture. And even if the camera is following me or it gets raised up, what you have is that looking up your nose kind of a look. Well, if you've ever heard the phrase, it's usually about snobbery, it's usually about an attitude, it's usually about being a little demeaning to people, looking down on you. See, when the camera's lens is from your eyebrow up and it's faced at you, then you're at least looking eye level, eye line to eye line with the viewer, with your listener. When that camera gets lowered below that, what happens is you're looking down on your audience. Now, this is so subconscious. Not everybody catches it. But if I'm doing a Facebook Live or I'm doing a video with my phone and I put the phone here, then my audience is looking up to me. If I put my phone eye to eye, then my audience is looking straight at me, but you're probably not getting the most flattering look. If I simply raise it above the eyebrows, the shadows change, the shape of the face changes, and the crowd feels like they're on an even playing field. Level, they don't feel like an even playing field. Now, if you think I'm kidding, I challenge you to take your devices sometimes and move them around and then go back and watch yourself. I challenge all of my Story Power customers, everybody who's a client of Story Power who goes through the Story Power Authority. This is one of the things we work on. Lights, colors, angles. How do you talk to the screen? How do you talk to the camera? How do you build a relationship with an audience that you can't see because they're on the other side of that media device? If you're not focused on those things, it's really easy to miss them. But the minute you start doing some replays of yourself, listen to your cadence, listen to your accentuations, listen to the parts that you dramatize or you don't, listen to the parts where your voice goes down or your voice goes up, and ask yourself, if I was the audience receiving that exact same video or piece of content, how would it make me feel? The way that the eyes are moving, the way that the face is moving. And remember, since we're in 4K, like this little guy over here, this camera is a 4K camera with a 20x zoom. I could put it at the back of the room and still count whiskers. When it focuses, and sometimes it likes to pick the highlights behind me, but when it's focused on my face, you get a really fine detail. I do that intro and outro right here for a reason, because I want to have the closest communication with you that I can, and the other cameras are 10 or 15 feet away. That's a little complicated. This one is specifically placed here for this reason. It's also specifically placed right above my eyebrow level. My eyebrow is the center of the lens. Standing at full height, my eyebrow is at the center of the lens. Why? Because I don't want you to feel like I'm talking down to you. And I don't want you to feel like I'm so far away from you that we can't connect. I want you to know that what I'm saying to you is important. And I've got the angle wide enough that I can use my hands in this. It's not just a talking head. I've got it zoomed out just enough that you see the studio. You know that I'm still in the same place. This is not a cut-in video. But all of those things were thought through as a communicator and a producer before we ever started recording. And when we move everything out of here for an event and we bring it all back, we go right back to these same settings. Sometimes we test something new. But for the most part, we go back to these same settings because the pattern of communication and the way that we communicate with our audience has remained the same. If you join the Story Power Academy, if you go through the Story Power Authority course, all of this is part of that course. All of this is what you're going to get in the course. But if you're not, and you're just watching Leading Leaders podcast because you want to catch up a little bit on some leadership stuff, I want you to understand that all of these skills that you do with the camera, they should also be in your personal relationships. The way that you engage with people one-on-one, the way that you move your body just a little bit when you have two people to talk to instead of one, the way you don't look beyond them and make them feel less than, the way you look them in the eye, you communicate what's important. That's going to matter whether you're on camera or you're face-to-face. And one-to-many versus one-to-many, one-to-one changes the way you communicate. I would say right now probably the master of that is Tony Robbins. I haven't seen a whole lot of people, even in their one-on-one podcasts, who are better at that. I'm going to isolate the world for a minute and only focus on you than Tony Robbins. Challenge you to go back and watch some of his videos, not only the way that they produce them, but the way he communicates with them. When he knows where the cameras are, and he knows how to involve the crowd, even in a one-on-one conversation. He's a master at it. You should learn from the best. I'm J. Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with Story Power. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at Story